The gunshot that killed Olivia Jensen's husband echoed through her nightmares for 3 years after they buried him in the hard Texas ground outside Tascosa. She stood at the window of her small ranch house on a scorching August morning in 1882, watching dust devils dance across the prairie, her fingers white-knuckled around a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. At 24 years old, she felt ancient, worn down by grief and the relentless work of keeping a cattle ranch running when everyone expected her to fail. The sound of hoofbeats pulled her attention to the dirt road leading to her property. A lone rider approached, sitting tall in the saddle, his hat pulled low against the morning sun. Olivia set down her cup and reached for the rifle she kept by the door, a habit born of necessity in a land where trust could get you killed. She stepped onto the porch, the weapon held casually but ready, and waited. The rider slowed his horse to a walk as he neared the house, raising one hand in a peaceful gesture. He was young, maybe her age or a year or two older, with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of creek water after rain. Dust coated his clothes, and the dark stubble on his jaw suggested several days on the trail. "Morning, madam," he called out, keeping his hands visible. "Name's Adam Garrett. I'm looking for work, and I heard in town you might be hiring." Olivia's jaw tightened. "You heard wrong." "With respect, madam, I saw your fences on the way in. They need mending. Your north pasture has cattle wandering, and unless I miss my guess, you're running this place alone." His voice was steady, matter-of-fact, without the pity she had come to hate. "I manage just fine." Adam shifted in his saddle and his horse nickered softly. "I'm sure you do, but managing and thriving are different things. I'm a good worker, honest, and I know cattle. I don't drink much, don't gamble, and I'm not looking to cause trouble. Just need work and a place to lay my head. I can't afford hired help. Room and board, then, and a small wage when you can spare it. I've got savings to tide me over." He met her eyes directly, and something in his gaze was different from the other drifters who had come seeking work. No calculation, no hidden agenda she could detect. Olivia wanted to say no. The word formed on her tongue, ready to send him riding back down that dusty road. But he was right about the fences, about the cattle, about everything being held together with spit and determination. Her pride was a luxury she could barely afford. "1-month trial," she said finally. "You sleep in the bunkhouse, you eat after the work is done, and you keep your distance. This is a business arrangement, nothing more." "Yes, madam, I wouldn't expect otherwise." Adam dismounted, leading his horse forward. "Where should I stable him?" "Barns around back. There's feed in the bins. Get yourself settled, then start on the north fence line." Olivia turned and walked back into the house before she could second-guess her decision, the rifle still gripped in her hand. Through the window, she watched Adam lead his horse away, his movements efficient and unhurried. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass and wondered what she had just done. The ranch had been her husband Thomas's dream, but it had become her burden and her salvation after he died. They had been married barely 2 years when a dispute over water rights turned violent. Thomas had ridden into town to settle things peacefully and come home draped over his saddle, 2 bullets in his chest. The man who killed him claimed self-defense, and without witnesses to contradict him, the law let him walk free. Olivia had wanted to die too, those first few months. But the cattle needed feeding, the horses needed tending, and the land demanded her attention whether she grieved or not. Slowly, the work became her armor, the isolation her shield. She spoke to people in town only when necessary, attended church, but sat in the back pew and left before anyone could offer sympathy that felt like salt in an open wound. Now she had invited a stranger onto her property, into her daily life, and the walls she had built felt dangerously thin. Adam proved to be as good as his word. By the end of the first week, the north fence was repaired, the wandering cattle rounded up, and he had started on a dozen other tasks Olivia had been putting off. He worked from sunrise to well past sunset, stopping only for the simple meals she left on the bunkhouse steps. He never tried to eat with her in the main house, never lingered to make conversation, never gave her reason to regret hiring him beyond the simple fact of his presence disrupting her solitude. She found herself watching him sometimes, standing at the kitchen window as she kneaded bread or peeled potatoes. He moved with a quiet confidence, whether mending tack or breaking a green horse to saddle. There was a gentleness in how he handled the animals that surprised her, a patience that seemed at odds with the roughness expected of cowboys. On Sunday, Adam asked permission to ride into Tascosa for church services. Olivia nodded, relieved to have the ranch to herself for a few hours. But that afternoon, as she worked in her small vegetable garden, she heard his horse returning earlier than expected. She looked up to see him leading a milk cow, her udder swollen and heavy. "What's that?" Olivia demanded, standing and brushing dirt from her skirt. "Widow Macready in town is moving back east to live with her daughter. She needed to sell off her stock quickly. This cow's a good producer, only 4 years old." Adam tied the cow to the fence post. "I know you didn't ask me to buy her, but I used my own money. Fresh milk every day, butter and cheese if you want. She'll pay for herself in no time. I didn't ask you to spend your money on this ranch. No, madam, you didn't. But I'm living here, eating here, and it seemed like a good investment." He pulled off his hat, wiping sweat from his forehead. "If you don't want her, I can sell her to someone else. But I thought it might be useful." Olivia stared at the cow, at Adam, at the stubborn hope in his expression. Something hot and angry burned in her chest, but beneath it ran a current of something else, something she didn't want to examine too closely. "Fine. Put her in the small paddock behind the barn. I'll milk her in the mornings." "I can handle that, madam. I know you've got plenty else to do." "I said I'll do it." Her voice came out sharper than intended. "I don't need you taking over every aspect of this ranch." Adam's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Understood, Mrs. Jensen. I'll just get her settled then." He led the cow away, leaving Olivia standing in her garden, fists clenched, hating the tears that pricked at her eyes. That night, she lay awake listening to the sounds of the ranch settling around her. The creak of wood cooling in the night air, the distant lowing of cattle, the whisper of wind through the eaves. The sounds had become her companions in the long, lonely years since Thomas died. But now she found herself straining to hear other sounds, the faint evidence of another human presence in the bunkhouse across the yard. She told herself it meant nothing, that she was simply unused to having someone else around. But sleep eluded her until the stars began to fade, and when she finally drifted off, her dreams were confused tangles of past and present, Thomas's face blending with another's until she couldn't tell them apart. The next morning, Olivia woke late, groggy and disoriented. The sun was already well up, and when she stumbled to the kitchen, she found the cow had been milked, the pail of fresh milk sitting covered on her doorstep beside a small bundle of wildflowers tied with a piece of twine. Her hands shook as she picked them up. The flowers were nothing fancy, just prairie blooms that grew wild in the grasslands, but they glowed with color against her weathered doorframe. She carried them inside and stood holding them for a long moment before finding a jar to use as a vase. Adam was working on the barn roof when she emerged, hammer in hand, replacing shingles that had blown off in the last storm. She wanted to confront him about the milk, about the flowers, about the way he kept doing things without being asked. Instead, she walked to the paddock where the new cow grazed contentedly and stood watching the animal, her emotions a confused tangle she couldn't unravel. "Mrs. Jensen," Adam's voice came from behind her, cautious. "Is something wrong with the cow? You milked her." "Yes, madam. I was up early and thought I'd save you the trouble. I told you I would handle it. I know you did." He moved to stand beside the fence, keeping a respectful distance. "But I also know you were up late last night. I saw your lamp burning past midnight. Figured you could use the extra sleep." Olivia turned to face him, anger flaring hot. "You don't know anything about me or what I need. You've been here barely 2 weeks and you think you can just decide what's best. No, madam, I don't think that at all." His voice remained calm, which only fueled her anger. "I'm just trying to be helpful. I don't need your help. I don't need your milk cow, I don't need your flowers, and I don't need you watching my windows to see when my lamp goes out. I hired you to fix fences and tend cattle, nothing more." "You're right," Adam said quietly. "I apologize for overstepping. It won't happen again." He walked away before she could respond, returning to his work on the barn roof. Olivia stood alone by the paddock, her heart hammering, feeling simultaneously vindicated and ashamed. The cow regarded her with placid brown eyes, chewing her cud, utterly unconcerned with human drama. For the next several days, Adam kept his word. He worked efficiently and silently, speaking only when necessary, leaving no gifts on her doorstep. He milked the cow before Olivia woke, but left the pail in the barn for her to collect. The distance between them grew wider, more formal, and Olivia told herself this was what she wanted. But the wildflowers in her kitchen had started to wilt, their bright petals dropping onto the table, and she found herself staring at them with an ache in her chest she couldn't name. On Thursday, a storm rolled in from the west, the sky turning the color of a bruise. Olivia hurried to secure the chickens and gather tools left in the yard. She was wrestling with a stubborn barn door when Adam appeared beside her, adding his strength to close it against the rising wind. "Thank you," she said, breathless. "Storm's going to be a bad one," he replied, scanning the darkening sky. "You should get to the house. I'll check the stock." Lightning split the sky, followed immediately by a crack of thunder that shook the ground. The first fat raindrops began to fall, cold and heavy. "The cattle in the south pasture," Olivia started, but Adam was already moving. "I'll bring them in closer." "Get inside, Mrs. Jensen." She wanted to argue, to insist she could handle her own cattle, but another lightning strike convinced her. She ran for the house as the storm broke in earnest, rain sheeting down so thick she could barely see the bunkhouse across the yard. Inside, Olivia dried off and changed into fresh clothes, then stood at the window watching for Adam's return. Minutes stretched into an hour, then longer. The storm showed no signs of letting up, wind howling around the eaves, rain hammering the roof. She paced the kitchen, imagining all the disasters that could befall a man alone in weather like this. When she finally saw a figure emerging from the rain, leading his horse with a herd of cattle bunched together, relief made her weak. But as Adam drew closer, she could see he was limping, favoring his left side. Olivia grabbed her shawl and ran out into the storm, rain immediately soaking through the wool. "Are you hurt?" "Horse spooked at the lightning, threw me into a ravine," Adam shouted over the wind. "Just bruised, nothing broken. Get to the house. You're soaked through." "Bunkhouse is fine, madam. The bunkhouse roof has a leak over the bed. I've been meaning to fix it. You'll freeze in wet clothes." She grabbed his arm, and even through the layers of soaked fabric, she could feel him trembling. "Don't argue with me, just move." They stumbled together across the muddy yard, the horse following obediently. Adam managed to get the animal into the barn before Olivia dragged him into the house. Water pooled on her kitchen floor as they stood dripping, both breathing hard. "Sit down before you fall down," Olivia ordered, pushing him toward a chair. She stoked the fire in the stove and put a kettle on for coffee, then dug through her trunk for some of Thomas's old clothes. They would be too small for Adam's broader frame, but dry was more important than fit. "Here. Change into these." She thrust the bundle at him, then retreated to her bedroom to change out of her own soaked clothes, giving him privacy. When she emerged, Adam was wearing Thomas's old shirt and pants, the sleeves and legs several inches too short, looking miserable and uncomfortable. He had draped his wet clothes over the chairs near the stove. "Where are you hurt?" Olivia asked, professional now, pushing down the strange feelings churning inside her. "Just my ribs, madam. Really, I'm fine." "Let me see, Mrs. Jensen, I don't think that's proper. I've doctored cattle, horses, and injured ranch hands. I've seen ribs before. Now lift that shirt so I can make sure nothing's broken, or I'll do it for you." Adam's ears turned red, but he obeyed, pulling up the too small shirt to reveal a torso mapped with muscle from hard work, and marked with the beginning of some spectacular bruising along his left side. Olivia stepped closer, professional detachment firmly in place, and pressed carefully along his ribs. He sucked in a breath when she hit a tender spot. "Nothing broken, I think, but badly bruised. You'll be sore for a week." She stepped back, suddenly aware of how close she was standing, of the warmth radiating from his skin, of his scent beneath the rain smell, earth and leather and something indefinably him. "I'll make a poultice to help with the swelling. You don't need to fuss, madam. You got hurt on my ranch, working my cattle in a storm. The least I can do is make sure you heal properly." She busied herself gathering herbs from her supplies, crushing them into a paste. "Take off the shirt." She applied the poultice with hands that remained steady through sheer force of will, trying not to notice the play of muscle under his skin, the way his breathing changed when her fingers brushed over particularly sensitive areas. When she finished, she wrapped his ribs with clean cloth and stepped back quickly. "Coffee should be ready," she said, her voice sounding strange to her own ears. They sat at opposite sides of the small kitchen table, the storm still raging outside, drinking coffee in a silence that felt different from before. Less hostile, but more dangerous in ways Olivia couldn't quite define. "Why did you really come here?" she asked finally. "To Tascosa, to my ranch." "You're educated, I can tell from how you speak. You could find better work than this." Adam stared into his coffee cup. "I was engaged to be married back in Kansas. Had a good job working for her father's freight company, a future all planned out. Then I discovered her father was cheating his business partners, stealing from them. I told him I was going to the law if he didn't make it right. Let me guess. The engagement ended. The engagement ended, my job ended, and I ended up on the wrong side of some men who didn't appreciate my interference. Seemed like a good time to head south, start fresh where nobody knew my name or cared about my past." He looked up at her. "What about you? How does a woman end up running a ranch alone in a place like this?" Olivia hesitated, the automatic deflection rising to her lips. But something about the storm, the intimacy of the small kitchen, the vulnerability in his eyes, made her want to speak truth. "My husband bought this land with dreams of building something lasting. He was a good man, gentle and kind. Too gentle for this country, maybe. When he tried to stand up for what was right, someone killed him for it." Her voice remained steady, though her hands trembled around her cup. "I stayed because leaving felt like admitting defeat, like letting the men who killed him win. This ranch is all I have left of Thomas, of the life we planned. I'll die before I let it go. You loved him very much." "I did. I do." Olivia met Adam's gaze directly. That's why I can't. Why I won't. She stopped, unsure how to finish. I understand, Adam said softly, and I'm not asking you to. I took this job because I needed work, and I stay because the work needs doing, nothing more. But it was more, and they both knew it. The knowledge hung between them like the storm clouds outside, heavy with unspoken possibility and danger. The storm blew itself out near midnight. Adam insisted on returning to the bunkhouse, despite Olivia's protests that the roof was still leaking. She watched from her window as he crossed the yard, limping slightly, disappearing into the darkness. Sleep wouldn't come. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Adam's hands wrapped around a coffee cup, about the bruises blooming across his ribs, about the way he had ridden into a storm without hesitation to protect her cattle, thinking about the way his eyes had looked when he said he understood. The next morning dawned clear and bright, the world washed clean by the storm. Olivia woke to find Adam already working, despite his injuries, repairing fence damage from the night before. She brought him breakfast without comment, bread and eggs and fresh milk, and he accepted with quiet thanks. A careful peace settled over the ranch, fragile as spun glass. They worked in parallel orbits, not quite together but no longer at odds. Adam continued to milk the cow before Olivia woke, but now he left it in the barn without apology. She cooked extra at meals and left plates for him that included her better efforts, small pies or cuts of meat she would have normally saved. No words were exchanged about these gestures, but they accumulated like a language being slowly learned. 2 weeks later, on a Saturday afternoon, a group of riders approached the ranch. Olivia recognized them immediately and felt her stomach tighten with dread. Jack Morrison led them, the man who had killed Thomas and walked free. Behind him rode 3 of his ranch hands, all armed, all watching the Jensen property with the calculating eyes of men sizing up a target. Olivia stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. Adam, who had been working in the corral, moved to stand within earshot but didn't approach, his own rifle held casually. "Mrs. Jensen," Morrison said, touching his hat brim in a mockery of respect. "Lovely day. State your business, Morrison, then get off my land." "Now, that's not very neighborly. I came with an offer, a generous one. I want to buy this ranch from you. Name's a fair price, enough to set you up comfortably somewhere else. This ranch isn't for sale. You say that now, but a woman alone can't run a spread like this forever. It's only a matter of time before you fail, and then the bank will sell it for pennies. Better to take my offer while it's on the table." His smile never reached his eyes. "I'd hate to see you lose everything. The only thing I've lost, Morrison, you took from me 3 years ago. Now get out." Morrison's expression hardened. "You're being foolish. This land should belong to someone who can work it properly, not some widow playing at ranching." Adam stepped forward then, not threatening but present. "The lady asked you to leave." Morrison's eyes shifted to Adam, assessing. "And who might you be? Someone who works here. Someone who knows the difference between a business offer and a threat." "Is that so?" Morrison's hand drifted toward his gun. "You might want to be careful who you're standing with, friend. Mrs. Jensen's husband learned the hard way about sticking his nose where it doesn't belong." Olivia saw red. She levered a round into her rifle, the sound sharp in the afternoon air. "You have 5 seconds to turn your horses around and leave. After that, I start shooting, and we'll see what the law calls self-defense when it's on my property." The ranch hands tensed, but Morrison raised a hand. "Easy now. We're leaving. But think about my offer, Mrs. Jensen. It won't stay open forever." He wheeled his horse around, his men following, but he paused at the property line. Accidents happen to ranches like this. Fires, stampedes, all sorts of unfortunate incidents. Would be a shame if something happened to your new hired help." They rode away in a cloud of dust, leaving Olivia shaking with rage and fear. The rifle nearly slipped from her hands as the adrenaline drained away. "Are you all right?" Adam asked, stepping closer. "He threatened you. Because of me, because you work for me. I'm not afraid of Jack Morrison." "You should be. He's killed before. He'll kill again if he thinks he can get away with it." Olivia's voice cracked. "I can't have your death on my conscience, too." "Hey." Adam gently took the rifle from her hands, setting it aside, then stood before her with careful respect for her space. "I'm not going anywhere. Morrison's a bully who thinks he can scare you into selling. Men like him, they're all bluster until someone stands up to them. Thomas stood up to him, and look where that got him. I'm not Thomas." Adam's voice was firm. "I've dealt with worse than Jack Morrison. And you're not facing him alone anymore." The words hung between them, weighted with meaning beyond the simple promise of protection. Olivia looked up into Adam's face, at the determination in his eyes, and felt something crack in the walls she had built around her heart. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you risk yourself for this ranch for me?" Adam was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was soft. "Because some things are worth standing for, some people are worth protecting, and because—" He stopped, seeming to wrestle with himself. "Because I've come to care what happens to you, Olivia. More than is probably wise, more than you want to hear, but there it is." Olivia's heart pounded so hard she was sure he could hear it. "I can't," she said, the words barely audible. "I can't let myself feel those things again. I can't lose someone else. I'm not asking you to feel anything. I'm just telling you the truth." Adam stepped back, putting distance between them. "And the truth is, Morrison or no Morrison, I'm not leaving unless you order me to go. So the question is, do you want me to leave?" She should say yes. The smart thing, the safe thing, was to send him away before this became more complicated, before her feelings grew beyond her control. But when she opened her mouth, different words emerged. "No, I don't want you to leave." Something shifted in Adam's expression, a warmth that made her chest tight. "Then I'll stay, and we'll deal with Morrison together if he comes back." Over the following weeks, Morrison's threats began to materialize. Fences were cut in the night, allowing cattle to wander. A fire started mysteriously in the hay barn, caught just in time before it could spread. Supplies ordered from town went missing. The harassment was carefully calculated, each incident deniable as accident or misfortune, nothing the law would act upon. Olivia found herself sleeping fitfully, waking at every sound. Adam took to riding the property line at night, keeping watch, catching catnaps during the day when he could. They were being worn down systematically, and both knew it. One evening, after another fence was found cut, Olivia sat at her kitchen table with her head in her hands, exhaustion and fear weighing on her like physical burdens. A knock at the door made her jump. She found Adam standing on her porch, hat in hands. "May I come in?" She stepped aside and he entered, looking uncomfortable in the domestic space. "This can't continue," he said without preamble. "Morrison's going to escalate until someone gets hurt or worse. We need to take the fight to him." "How?" "He's careful never to do anything we can prove." "Then we make him careless. We set a trap." Adam's jaw was set with determination. "Next time he sends men to cause trouble, we're ready for them. We catch them in the act, bring the law in with evidence they can't ignore. That's dangerous. More dangerous than waiting for him to burn us out in our sleep." Adam moved closer, and Olivia caught the scent of leather and night air. "I know you're afraid. I know you've already lost too much. But hiding behind these walls, pushing everyone away, that's not really living. That's just surviving. Surviving is all I know how to do anymore." "That's not true," his voice gentled. I've watched you these past months. You're not just surviving. You're fighting every day to keep this ranch running to honor your husband's memory. That takes courage and strength most people don't have. But you don't have to do it alone. Olivia looked up at him, at this man who had appeared in her life like an answer to a prayer she hadn't known how to speak. Why do you believe in me so much? Because I see you, Olivia. Not the widow, not the struggling rancher, but you. The woman who brings wildflowers in from the prairie to put on her husband's grave, who talks to the cattle like they're old friends, who makes the best apple pie I've ever tasted and pretends it's nothing special, who's brave enough to keep standing when most people would have fallen. He paused. How could I not believe in you? Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. I'm so tired, Adam, so tired of being afraid of being alone. Then let me help. Let me stand with you. He held out his hand, not demanding, just offering. Please. Olivia stared at his hand for a long moment. Taking it meant more than accepting help with Morrison. It meant acknowledging the feelings growing between them, opening a door she had sealed shut with her grief. It meant risking her heart again. But Adam was right. Surviving wasn't living. And the life she was living now, walled off from connection and possibility, was a kind of death itself. She placed her hand in his, feeling his fingers close, warm and strong around hers. All right, she said. We do this together. The smile that broke across Adam's face was like sunrise after the longest night. He didn't pull her closer, didn't push for more than she was ready to give, just held her hand gently and nodded. They planned carefully. Adam spread word in town that a valuable horse had just been delivered to the Jensen ranch. Too fine an animal for a small spread, but supposedly a gift from a grateful relative back east. The story was pure fiction, but it was bait Morrison wouldn't be able to resist. Sure enough, 3 nights later, Adam's keen ears caught the sound of riders approaching in the darkness. He woke Olivia with a soft knock on her door, and together they took up positions in the barn, having already moved the regular horses to a safe location. The sheriff, convinced by their evidence of ongoing harassment, waited with his deputy in the shadows near the house. 4 men crept onto the property, moving toward the barn with clear intent. In the moonlight, Olivia recognized 2 of them from Morrison's ranch. Her heart hammered as they entered the barn, clearly searching for the valuable horse that didn't exist. Looking for something, gentlemen. Adam's voice rang out as he lit a lantern, flooding the barn with light. The sheriff and his deputy emerged from concealment, guns drawn. Well, the sheriff said. Seems we've got ourselves some trespassers, and after midnight too. Now what business would you boys have on the Jensen ranch at this hour? The men tried to bluster and lie, but caught red-handed with tools for breaking into stalls, their excuses fell flat. The sheriff arrested all 4 on the spot. One of you want to tell me who sent you? The sheriff asked. Might go easier if you cooperate. The youngest of the group cracked under pressure. Morrison said there was a valuable horse, said we'd get a cut if we brought it to his ranch, said Mrs. Jensen wouldn't dare make trouble. Is that so? The sheriff looked satisfied. Well, that's mighty interesting testimony. I think it's time Mr. Morrison and I had a serious conversation. As the sheriff led the arrested men away, Olivia stood beside Adam in the barn, trembling with relief and residual fear. Is it really over? Morrison's smart enough to talk his way out of direct involvement, Adam said honestly. But with his men arrested and talking, he'll know he can't operate freely anymore. The law will be watching him. It should be enough to make him back off. And if it's not, then we'll deal with that when it comes. Adam turned to face her fully. But whatever happens, you're not alone in it. Olivia looked at him in the lantern light. This man who had come into her life asking only for work and had given so much more. The fear that had gripped her heart for 3 years felt less suffocating, as if someone had finally opened a window in a stuffy room. "Adam," she started, then stopped, unsure how to voice what she was feeling. "You don't have to say anything," he said gently. "It's enough that you let me help." "No, it's not enough, not anymore." She took a shaky breath. "I've been so focused on protecting myself from more pain that I didn't see I was causing a different kind of pain by shutting everything out. You've been patient with me, kinder than I deserved, and I've been too afraid to acknowledge what that means. Olivia, please, let me finish." She gathered her courage. "I'm not ready for everything yet. The grief is still there and probably always will be, but I'm ready to try to open that gate a little and see what happens, if you're willing to keep being patient with me." Adam's smile was soft in the lantern light. "I've got all the time in the world." He held out his hand again, and this time when Olivia took it, she didn't let go. They walked back to the house together, fingers intertwined, and something that had been frozen in Olivia's chest for 3 long years began, very slowly, to thaw. The next weeks brought changes, subtle but profound. Adam still slept in the bunkhouse and worked the ranch, but now he often ate dinner at Olivia's table, and they would talk long into the evening about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up in Kansas, about losing his mother young and being raised by a father who valued honesty above all else. She shared memories of Thomas, and Adam listened without jealousy, understanding that her past love didn't diminish what might grow between them. Morrison, true to Adam's prediction, backed off after 2 of his arrested ranch hands testified against him to reduce their own sentences. The harassment stopped, and life on the ranch settled into a new rhythm. One Sunday, Olivia asked Adam if he would accompany her to church. They rode into Tascosa together, and the sight of the widow Jensen with a man set tongues wagging. But Olivia found she didn't care about the gossip. Let them talk. She was tired of living for other people's expectations. After church, they walked through town, and Olivia introduced Adam properly to the shopkeepers and neighbors she had kept at arm's length for so long. People responded to her newfound openness with warmth, as if they had been waiting for her to come back to life. At the general store, Olivia selected supplies while Adam examined some tools. The proprietor's wife, Mrs. Henderson, leaned close with a conspiratorial smile. "It's good to see you looking happy again, dear. That young man seems quite taken with you." Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks. He works for me." "Oh, honey, I've been married 30 years. I know the difference between an employee and a man in love." Mrs. Henderson patted her hand. "Don't let fear of what others might think stop you from living. Life's too short and happiness too rare." The words stayed with Olivia as they rode back to the ranch. Adam had been nothing but respectful, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. But Mrs. Henderson was right. She had seen the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, the tenderness in his eyes. And if she was honest with herself, she had started looking at him the same way. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Olivia gathered her courage. "Adam, do you remember when you first arrived and I said this was just a business arrangement?" "I do. I was wrong. Or rather, it stopped being just business a long time ago and I've been too stubborn to admit it." She turned to face him. "You've become important to me, more than important. I look forward to seeing you every morning. I sleep better knowing you're nearby. When something happens, good or bad, you're the first person I want to tell." Adam's expression was open, hopeful. "What are you saying, Olivia?" "I'm saying I'm ready for that gate to open a little wider. I'm saying I have feelings for you, and I think you have feelings for me, and maybe we should stop pretending otherwise." "I've had feelings for you since about the second week I was here," Adam admitted with a slight laugh. Probably earlier. You were standing in the yard arguing with a stubborn horse, covered in dust, hair falling out of your braid, absolutely furious and absolutely beautiful. And I thought, Adam, you're in trouble now. Olivia laughed, the sound surprising her. I was a mess. You were magnificent. You are magnificent. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her cheek with his hand. I'd like to court you properly, Olivia Jensen. Take you to town dances, bring you flowers that aren't half-dead wildflowers tied with twine, show you that not every man will leave you broken. I'd like that, she whispered. I'd like that very much. Adam leaned forward, his intention clear, but he paused before their lips met, giving her the choice. Olivia closed the distance herself, kissing him softly, tentatively, her first kiss since Thomas died. It felt strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. When they pulled apart, she was shaking, but not from fear. She started. Worth waiting for, Adam finished, his thumb stroking her cheek gently. We'll go as slow as you need, Olivia, there's no rush. But as summer turned to fall and fall to winter, things progressed naturally between them. Adam moved from the bunkhouse to the main house, though he kept his own room and they maintained propriety. They worked the ranch together as true partners, making decisions jointly, celebrating successes and weathering setbacks as a team. On Christmas Eve, 6 months after that first kiss, Adam took Olivia to town for a holiday dance. She wore her best dress, dark green calico with black trim, and he had cleaned up until he was nearly unrecognizable. His hair trimmed, his jaw clean shaven, wearing borrowed finery that almost fit. They danced together under paper decorations and lamplight, Olivia's hand in his arm around her waist, moving to fiddle music played by local farmers. Around them, the townspeople of Tascosa celebrated, but Olivia was aware only of Adam, of the warmth of his hand, the steadiness of his presence. I love you, he said quietly, the words meant only for her. I know it might be too soon to say it, but it's true. I love you, Olivia. Not in spite of your grief or your walls or your fierce independence, but because of all those things, because of who you are. Olivia felt tears prick her eyes, but they were good tears. I love you too. I didn't think I could feel this way again, but I do. You've shown me it's possible to honor the past while still embracing the future. Then embrace it with me, Adam said. Marry me, Olivia. Let's build a life together, a real partnership. I'm not trying to replace Thomas or take over your ranch. I want to stand beside you as an equal, facing whatever comes next together. She should have been afraid. The proposal was fast by conventional standards and the town would have opinions. But Olivia found she didn't care. Life was too short, happiness too precious to waste on fear and propriety. Yes, she said, smiling through her tears. Yes, I'll marry you. Adam picked her up and spun her around right there on the dance floor, laughing with pure joy. Around them, people began to notice and cheer, the news spreading through the room like wildfire. By the time they set a date for early spring, the whole town knew, and to Olivia's surprise, the response was overwhelmingly positive. Winter passed in a blur of preparation and quiet happiness. Adam officially became a partner in the ranch, and they worked side by side to make improvements and plan for the future. They talked about children, about expanding the herd, about all the possibilities spreading before them like an open road. Morrison, hearing of the engagement, made one last attempt at buying the ranch, but his offer was half-hearted. With Adam as a full partner and the community support behind them, everyone knew the Jensen ranch was no longer vulnerable. Morrison eventually gave up and turned his attention elsewhere. On a bright morning in March of 1883, Olivia Jensen married Adam Garrett in the small church in Tascosa. She wore a simple dress of cream-colored silk, and he wore a new suit purchased specially for the occasion. The church was filled with townspeople and neighboring ranchers, people who had watched Olivia's journey from grief-stricken widow to radiant bride. As they exchanged vows, Olivia felt the presence of her past and her future existing together without conflict. Thomas would always hold a place in her heart, but there was room for Adam too, room for new love and new life. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Adam kissed her gently, and the congregation cheered. They walked down the aisle together, hand in hand, out into the bright spring sunshine and the life awaiting them. The wedding celebration lasted well into the evening, with food and music and dancing. But eventually, as the stars came out, Adam and Olivia slipped away, riding back to their ranch, to the home they would now share fully as husband and wife. That night, lying in Adam's arms, Olivia felt complete in a way she had thought impossible after Thomas died. "Thank you for waiting," she whispered into the darkness, "for being patient when I needed time." "Thank you for letting me in," Adam replied, pressing a kiss to her forehead, "for being brave enough to open that gate." The first year of their marriage brought challenges and joys in equal measure. A hard winter tested the cattle, but they lost fewer animals than expected thanks to Adam's careful preparation. Spring brought flooding that damaged fences, but with two pairs of hands working together, repairs went quickly. In the summer of 1884, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. The news filled her with both excitement and fear. She had wanted children with Thomas, had mourned the family they would never have. Now, carrying Adam's child, she felt the weight of both past dreams and present reality. Adam was overjoyed but sensitive to her mixed emotions. "It's all right to feel complicated about this," he told her, his hand resting gently on her still flat stomach. "It doesn't mean you love this baby any less or that you've forgotten what you lost. It just means you have a big heart with room for many feelings." His understanding helped Olivia navigate her complex emotions as her pregnancy progressed. She wrote letters to Thomas in her journal, telling him about the new life growing inside her, asking for his blessing in a way. It brought her peace, a sense that her past and present could coexist harmoniously. In February of 1885, during a late-night snowstorm, Olivia went into labor. The midwife from town had been staying with them for the past week, anticipating the birth, and she worked efficiently while Adam paced the house, wearing tracks in the floor with his worried circuits. After hours of labor, just as dawn broke over the snow-covered prairie, Olivia gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Thomas Adam Garrett, honoring both the past and the future. Adam held his son with shaking hands and tears running down his face. "He's perfect," he whispered. "Olivia, he's absolutely perfect." Looking at her husband cradling their child at the way the sunrise light filled the room, Olivia felt a completeness she had never expected to know again. Her heart, which she had guarded so fiercely for so long, was full to bursting. "We made something beautiful," she said softly. "Out of all that pain and fear, we made this." The years flowed by like water over stones, shaping and smoothing their life together. Little Thomas grew into a sturdy boy with his father's green eyes and his mother's determination. 2 years after his birth, a daughter arrived, Anna Marie, with dark curls and a sunny disposition. The ranch prospered under their joint management. They expanded the herd, improved the bloodlines, and gained a reputation for quality cattle. Adam proved to have a gift for horse breeding, and soon the Garrett Ranch was known throughout the Texas Panhandle for both cattle and horses. Olivia continued to visit Thomas's grave regularly, bringing flowers and tending the plot. Adam never objected, understanding that her love for her first husband didn't diminish what she felt for him. Sometimes he went with her, and they would sit together in comfortable silence, honoring the man whose death had eventually led to their meeting. Morrison eventually sold his ranch and moved to Colorado, beaten not by violence but by the simple fact that honest hard work and community support proved stronger than intimidation and greed. His departure removed the last shadow hanging over the Garrett ranch. On their 5th anniversary, Adam surprised Olivia with a gift. He had commissioned a sign for the ranch entrance, carved wood that read Garrett and Jensen Ranch in elegant letters. "I know it's your ranch," he explained. "Your history, your foundation. I didn't want my name to erase that. We're partners in everything, and the ranch should reflect that." Olivia kissed him, overwhelmed by his thoughtfulness. "Change it to Jensen and Garrett Ranch," she said. "Alphabetical order, but also a reminder of the journey. Jensen first, Garrett second, but both together and equal." They settled on that, and the sign stood proudly at the ranch entrance, a symbol of their partnership and their blended history. More children came over the years. Another son, William, arrived in 1889, followed by twin daughters, Catherine and Elizabeth, in 1892. The house expanded to accommodate their growing family, with additions built onto the original structure. The sound of children's laughter filled spaces that had once echoed with loneliness. Olivia taught her children about their history, about the uncle they had never met who had first homesteaded this land, about dreams deferred and second chances. She wanted them to understand that life could bring terrible loss, but also unexpected joy. That closed gates could open again if you were brave enough to take the risk. Adam taught them about patience and perseverance, about treating animals with kindness, and doing right even when it was difficult. He told them about his own journey from Kansas, about the importance of standing up for what you believed in, even at personal cost. Together, they raised their children to be honest, hardworking, and compassionate, values drawn from both their experiences. As the children grew, they each found their place on the ranch. Thomas, the eldest, developed his father's love for horses and took over much of the breeding program. Anna Marie had her mother's head for numbers and managed the ranch accounts with precision. William loved working with cattle, and the twins, as they got older, showed interest in everything from gardening to blacksmithing. The 20th century arrived with changes sweeping across the West. The wild frontier days were fading, replaced by more settled civilization. Tascosa, which had once been a rough cowtown, grew into a proper community with schools and churches and established businesses. Through it all, the Jensen and Garrett Ranch remained a constant, a testament to what could be built with love and partnership. Neighbors and townspeople spoke of it as an example of how things should be done, of how respect and equality between husband and wife could create something stronger than either could build alone. On a warm evening in June of 1902, Olivia and Adam sat on their porch watching the sunset, a ritual they had maintained throughout their nearly 20 years of marriage. Their children were grown now, the eldest starting families of their own, the younger ones preparing to take over various aspects of the ranch operation. "You ever think about that day I rode up asking for work?" Adam asked, his hand finding hers as naturally as breathing. "Sometimes," Olivia admitted. "I think about how close I came to sending you away, to never giving us a chance. I was so determined to keep everyone at a distance. I probably seemed like just another drifter to you. You did. But there was something in your eyes even then. A kindness, a steadiness. I told myself I was hiring you because I needed the help, but maybe some part of me recognized what you could become to me." She squeezed his hand. Thank you for being patient with me, for waiting while I found my way back to life. Thank you for being worth waiting for, Adam replied. For being brave enough to love again, to let me into your heart. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their grandchildren play in the yard, the next generation of the family they had built together. The ranch stretched around them, prosperous and peaceful, a far cry from the struggling operation Olivia had been trying to maintain alone when Adam arrived. You have any regrets? Olivia asked softly. Adam considered the question seriously. I regret the pain you had to endure before we found each other. I regret that Thomas didn't get to see what his dream became, but our life together, our children, this ranch, not a single regret. Me neither, Olivia said. Not anymore. For a long time, I felt guilty about being happy again, like it betrayed Thomas's memory. But I understand now that love doesn't work that way. The heart has infinite capacity if we're brave enough to keep opening it. As darkness fell and stars began to appear, their children and grandchildren gathered on the porch, drawn by the magnetic pull of family. Thomas brought his wife and baby daughter. Anna Marie and her husband arrived from town, where they had established a successful mercantile business. William came in from checking the herd, and the twins emerged from the house bearing trays of food and drink. The evening dissolved into warmth and laughter, 3 generations sharing stories and making memories. Olivia looked around at the faces illuminated by lamplight, at the family she and Adam had created, and felt profound gratitude. She had guarded her heart so fiercely after Thomas died, building walls she thought would protect her from ever hurting again. But Adam had shown her that walls designed to keep out pain also kept out love, kept out life itself. He had waited patiently, not demanding entry but simply offering his steady presence, until she was ready to open the gate. And what had grown in the space beyond that gate was more beautiful than she could have imagined. Not a replacement for what she had lost, but something new and equally precious, built on a foundation of patience, respect, and enduring love. Later that night, after everyone had gone to their respective homes or beds, Olivia and Adam prepared for sleep. She watched him move around their bedroom with the familiarity of 20 years of marriage, and her heart swelled with affection. What? Adam asked, catching her watching him. Just thinking how lucky I am, how lucky we are, he came to her, taking her hands in his. The luck was all mine, finding you, being allowed to love you, building this life together. That's more than most men ever get. We made it together, Olivia corrected. Every bit of it we built together. They climbed into bed, fitting together as naturally as puzzle pieces, and Olivia rested her head on Adam's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. I love you, she murmured, the words as easy now as breathing, though they had once seemed impossible. I love you too, Adam replied, pressing a kiss to her hair. Today, tomorrow, and all the days after. Outside, the Texas night settled over the ranch, stars wheeling overhead in their ancient patterns. The cattle lowed softly in the distance, horses nickered in the barn, and the gentle sounds of a working ranch at rest filled the air. The widow who had guarded her heart so fiercely had learned to love again. The cowboy who had waited so patiently had been rewarded beyond measure. Together, they had built something lasting, something true, something that would endure long after they were gone. And in the morning, they would wake and tend the land they loved, side by side as they had done for 20 years and would continue to do for all the years remaining to them. Partners in every sense, equals in love and labor. 2 hearts that had found each other against the odds and chosen to beat as one. The gate that had been so tightly closed had opened onto a future neither of them could have predicted. And beyond that gate lay not the pain Olivia had feared, but joy, partnership, family, and a love that had grown deeper and stronger with each passing year. As sleep claimed them, wrapped in each other's arms, the story that had begun with grief and patience found its truest expression in this moment of peace and contentment. Not an ending, but a continuation, a testament to the power of waiting for love and the courage it takes to accept it when it finally arrives. The Jensen and Garrett Ranch would stand for generations, a legacy of what can be built when two people find each other at exactly the right moment and choose to walk forward together, hand in hand, heart to heart, into whatever the future holds.